Hello. Today we're gonna speak about Hecate, which she was a goddess from the Greco-Roman world. But before starting talking about Hecate, we're gonna talk about the Homeric hymn of Demeter and Hesiod's Theogony. The theme is the antagonism of sexes, no, of female and male. The male supremacy as a struggle after female reign and dominated society. This is part of the theme in Hesiod's Theogony. The Homeric hymn of Demeter shows the transition from matriarchy to patriarchy from a female point of view, and therefore shows attempts by females to resist male domination. Homeric hymn, therefore, has a feminine sensitivity. It looks at the patriarchal process from a feminine point of view. The redefinition of family triad so as to achieve stasis through a hierarchy which subordinates female to male, and a moral evolution which makes the reign of Zeus homologous to with the reign of justice. Male domination of the world, as Zeus controls the lightning symbol of power. No, the symbol of power is controlled by a male. Female goddesses are incorporated into this new and stable male-dominated world. Females would occupy an honor and privileged place. Some female goddesses would occupy an honor and privileged place, but still not as privileged as men, as male gods. A number of characters are introduced primarily through extended digressions, who survive as members of the Olympian order, and whose position and characters are directly linked with the Olympian rule of Zeus. No? These characters are Aphrodite, Styx, Hecate, and Pandora. Hecate joins Demeter and Persephone. There is this female reunion under a patriarchal world. Helios, the sun god, superior position over Hecate parallels the role of Zeus. Helios as light and Hecate as darkness point up the central position between the nature and power of the female and male deities, this dual system of male and female gods. In the Theogony, there is a congruence between the sexual and the political spheres. The dualistic character of the poem's theological goal, the patriarchal form of the family and the justice of Zeus, can be symbolically represented together in the birth of Athena, because the problematic of the poem is articulated as a struggle between male with Uranus and female with Gaia for both power and justice. Female association with agriculture and mysteries is the agency which transforms mortal dependence on the gods and helplessness before them into a more genuinely reciprocal relationship. The relationship between female and male gods parallels the relationship between human and the divine worlds. Even the pomegranate, which symbolizes blood and death, both fertility and marriage. The association of pomegranate with both the male and female fertility deities makes it an ideal symbol for the union of Persephone and Hades in the Theogony. The Theogony both reflects and embodies the fundamental social processes which characterize the patriarchal order toward whose establishment it progresses. Now, if we try to interpret the hymn of Demeter, which is, as you will see, is complementing what we just discussed. It is really a hymn to both Demeter and Persephone, deities so closely linked in both myth and cult that they were often referred to simply as the two goddesses. It has been suggested that the Homeric hymns, as a type of early hexameter poetry, form a complementary genre, which together with the Homeric epics and the Hesiodic poems charts the nature of the gods and their relationship with mankind. So all together is trying to build up this relationship between mankind and the gods. The hymn of Demeter fits into this pattern, since as a result of the events which it describes, the cosmic order undergoes a significant development. At the end of the hymn, the two goddesses are established firmly as members of the divine society on Olympus, but Persephone's situation is unique in that she is Hades' wife, and as such must return to the underworld for part of each year to meet with him. Another branch of modern scholarship has seen in the story of Core's rape a paradigm for human marriage as a form of symbolic death before a symbolic rebirth and reincorporation into a new household as wife and mother. Other Greek myths of the abduction of a bride or of a father's sacrifice of his daughter have been compared to this one and interpreted in similar terms. This approach views the story as one of gender conflict, as in some of the cosmological myths in Hesiod's Theogony and also in Aeschylus' Oresteia. Well, now after talking about Hesiod's Theogony and the hymn of Demeter, I'm gonna talk about Hecate in ancient Greece. She was a goddess whose unique powers cut across natural boundaries of earth, sea, and sky and remain independent and undiminished under Zeus' rule. Men summon Hecate when they want to gain favor with the gods in general, as though Hecate were as an intermediary between men and gods. She holds the gift of honor on earth, heaven, and sea, in keeping with the original division of power among the Titans. The emphasis on Hecate's status as an only child is generally viewed as an example of Zeus' fairness in preserving the rights of a deity who has no brothers to defend her claim. Although Hecate is presented positively, in a positive way, as a goddess whose primary concern is to help men, it is inherent in her will to withhold her favor and even to punishment. The absence of siblings, however, might also suggest an original genealogy outside the Olympian family, especially since the mention of Hecate as an only child frames the recitation of her independent powers and on both occasions is accompanied by a statement of the honor which Zeus and the other gods accord her. Her powers, however, are defined in terms of human rather than wild nature, so human powers. Earth for Hecate seems to mean the human world, befitting her role among kings, warriors, horsemen, and herdsmen, so being with humans, at a human level. She opposed to Zeus' dominion and was defeated by him. That's called Hecate's Titan heritage. She was subsequently honored by Zeus with unique and far-reaching privilege. She offers sweet gentleness. She is the kindly goddess, is the first female whose preeminence derives from the patriarchal father. Hecate enters the Olympian pantheon by acts of reciprocity and exchange. So she's a god, but it's not at the same level as other gods. It has like free entrance, for example. If we continue looking at the meaning of this goddess, the fostering presence of the goddess means success and renown in courts and assemblies, in battles and athletic contests, and in horsemanship. Hecate's presence extends also to the more mundane affairs of life, where her favor means a good catch at sea and success in animal breeding. She is the goddess of the point of change who can lead Persephone up from the underworld and Thetis down to the life of mortals. She is a goddess of fertility who blesses the union, and her underworld connections lend this wedding scene a note of dramatic poignancy. She is also presented as the first female goddess that has a positive light and does not represent a threat to males. Her matrilineal tracing of descent and lack of male context isolate her in the patriarchal order. She does not marry Zeus, but becomes one of her daughters, remaining a virgin. She is a nurse of the young. In this capacity joins company with the Muses, who attend upon favored princes from the time of their birth, and with Gaia, who raised the young Zeus on Crete. Hecate is therefore a sign as well of the positive pole of female potency, a precursor of Athena and the other kindly daughters of Zeus, and the antitype to Gaia, who struggles for supremacy with the male, to Aphrodite, who subdues him through Pilotes and Apete, and to Pandora, the incurable curse. Among the gods, she possesses unique status and honor, as I said, and among men, the full prerogative of demonstrating her powers. She is also a goddess who receives and answers men's prayers. The contextual evidence then declares Hecate to be a goddess of special prominence and the object of religious devotion. Hecate's character is not established by the conditions of her birth alone, but is only finally fixed in relation to the reign of Zeus. Hecate was present whenever souls entered or left bodies, aiding them across the greatest Brundarian man traverses. She's there in between worlds, no? Her origins appear to lie in the Near East, particularly in Caria, where personal names compounded with her name are common and where monuments, although of a late date, are numerous. In this place, in Caria, she was the protectress of Stratonicea, together with Zeus Panamaros, and enjoyed cult unions with various deities, including Gaia. Her other Eastern cults, particularly the orgiastic mysteries of Aegina and Samothrace, involve features such as the offering of dogs, more in keeping with the later Hecate. The weight of scholarly opinion now favors an Anatolian Carian origin for the cult of Hecate. The argument is based on two observations. First observation are personal names formed from Hecate, from H-E-K-A-T, like, for example, Hecataios, the geographer, or Hecatomus, who gave his name to the dynasty of Mausolus, occur primarily in Caria during the 5th and 4th centuries BC. So this is one reason why we think of her origins, Carian origins. The second reason is that there is a temple of Hecate at Lagina in Caria, where the goddess was worshipped as Sateira and Megistre and Epiphanestate. Her exalted rank and function here are unmatched in cults of Hecate elsewhere. Her cult statue, represented on coins of Stratonicea and on the north frieze of her temple in Lagina, was not trimorphic but exhibited the original form of the goddess as a single body. The earliest, this was the second reason, no? And now continuing with their origins, the earliest inscriptional evidence for the cult of Hecate is 6th century and occurs on an altar in the temple of Apollo Delphinius at Miletus, where Hecate appeared with Apollo as the protectress of entrances. Literary, archaeological, and epigraphical evidence down to the end of the 4th century BC indicates that the worship of Hecate was limited to the Ionian and Aeolian polis, cities, and their colonies on either side of the Aegean, to the population, in other words, which claimed blood ties with the fallen Mycenaean rulers. So comes back to Mycenae probably, or it might be, no? The fact that Hecate enjoyed special favor among these groups may indicate that her cult was known in the Bronze Age, as I said, no, like from Mycenae. times. Arguments for Hecate's Anatolian origins are not in accord with the evidence, though. Hecate is represented wearing an ungirded peplos, which was a kind of robe that a woman was using. This dress was typical for little girls. That Hecate should be characterized as joyful may surprise, since our general notion of her is that of a magical witch-like deity. Krauss has shown that in Athens this dark image does not go back farther than Sophocles and is first fully exploited by Euripides. So there might have been changes on the view of Hecate. Through the base paintings, we can follow the image of Hecate, which began in the 480s down to the time of the Parthenon. She's a young girl who usually wears an open peplos and is often depicted running. In certain respects, the culmination of the early classical image of Hecate is found in the east pediment of the Parthenon. Hecate's underworld characteristics and identification with black magic did not begin to dominate in literature until the late 6th century with the appearance of Euripides' Medea. Theodor Krauss theorizes that Hecate was transformed from a great goddess, like the Hesiodic Hecate, into a goddess of witchcraft through identification with the Thessalian road goddess Einodia, who appeared in Athens in the 5th century, carrying with her the strong traditions of Thessalian witchcraft. So it might have been that Hecate had a very different image that was transformed with influence from other deities that were coming from other areas like the Thessalians. She's an only daughter, and she's singled out as the one deity to keep the time which was hers from the beginning, from the period of the Titans. She belongs to the old and new generation of gods. The hymn of Hecate serves as a proleptic announcement of the beneficence of Zeus' reign. Her powers are kind. She is not goddess of violence or revenge. She embodies female fecundity in a transmuted form, expressed generously, fully and carefully, but in abstract, as nurturance, tendance, fosterage, and not as direct expression of the child from the womb. So yeah, it's female, but doesn't have the characteristics of a female mother, no, that gives birth. Just to finish with Hecate and her relationship with Crossroads, which is also original and curious. No? The Greeks and Romans and many other ancient civilizations regarded both natural and man-made liminal points of all kinds, like doors, gates, rivers, and frontiers, as well as crossroads as uncertain places requiring special rituals. Liminal points and boundaries structure the world, preventing it from becoming an unintelligible chaos. The liminal part was though chaos, as did not belong to any of the extremes it separated. The first category of crossroads rituals comprises those that secure protection and success for the individual traversing a dissociated, uncertain liminal point or embarking there on a new enterprise. The second category comprises those that exploited the dissociation of the crossroads liminality. Crossroads, precisely because they were unclaimed knowers, were among the few appropriate places to leave materials expelled from society. On the one hand, crossroads were uncertain, dissociated places of passage, where protective actions were necessary. On the other hand, by the very fact of their dissociation, they were convenient vacuums into which ancient man could dispose of his religious and and their refuse, the garbage, let's say, or call up that refuse in the form of restless souls to aid him in the performance of magic. Protective rituals were needed to pass through these areas. This category includes practices involving Hecate, the goddess of crossroads. Hecate is the most familiar Greco-Roman crossroads deity. Many of the rituals intended to ensure smooth transitions or ward off dangers there involve her. Hecate's role as goddess that guides on passing crossroads, liminal points, and during transitions of many types. No? As a goddess who guided and guarded during transitions of all types, Hecate would have protected men against uncanny ghosts because gods were imagined to gather at liminal points, so she was protecting at passing those crossroads. Naturally, she eventually became associated ever more closely with the gods themselves, for a mistress who could keep them at bay also could lead them on, and in her watchful and supplicating moments give them free rein to wreak terror. So this is all for Hecate. I hope you enjoyed the talk.